What's going on, everyone? It's Token back with some MPL Division 2 action. Thank you guys for tuning into today's video. I hope you guys do enjoy this battle. It is week 5 and we do go up against the Brussel Bellsprouts. And the Brussel Bellsprouts are doing alright. They started out the season 0-2. Then they won their first matchup against another winless coach. And then they had a forfeit win due to a coach dropping. But we just finally got that coach replaced. So there won't be any more forfeit wins. Hopefully, you never know. But that one coach who was completely inactive did get replaced, but previously, just this past week before week 5, that coach was still a part of the league, so they did not. So my opponent was able to just get that forfeit win. So they pretty much got one win against a winless coach, which isn't too much to brag about. So this was a matchup that I definitely wanted to make sure to win and snag for us, especially because we are 3-1, and there happens to be a lot of 3-1 coaches as of right now. I think there's about 4 other. So I think it's 4 other 3-1 coaches. So there's a decent amount of coaches doing not too well, and then there's a good amount of coaches doing pretty well. So we definitely want to separate ourselves from the pack and snag this win. So that's what I was focused on and knew I wanted to put my best effort forth in this battle. Unfortunately, though, as I did state in our video that went up yesterday, I wasn't able to, well, as you know, today's Wednesday. These battles usually go up on Monday, but I wasn't able to do this battle last week due to being really busy. But on top of, my opponent was also really busy, so our schedules were conflicting a decent amount. And then on Monday morning, I was like, all right, I can do this battle before I go into work. Are you ready? And my opponent couldn't do the battle Monday morning, so it was just a lot getting the schedule. But we did finally get it scheduled and get this battle done. So yeah, we're here. Hope you guys enjoy. So as always, we'll quickly go over what I was thinking that my opponent would bring, pretty much the scariest Pokemon to me, and then we'll go over, oh my god, struggling to talk. We'll go over what exactly I brought, and then we'll hop right into this battle. Really quickly though, I hope you guys don't mind me wearing this sweater though. It's really cold in my house this morning. It's a very cold morning, so I hope you guys don't mind. But yeah, so as you can see on your screen, this is some of the Pokemon I was thinking. Pretty scary Pokemon I was thinking my opponent might bring. Let's quickly just go recap my opponent's entire draft. And my opponent's team for the Brussel Bellsprouts is going to be Miniroar, Mega Altaria, Xurkitree, Heatran, Amoonguss, Slowking, Mamoswine, Acelgor, Sock, Liepard, and Mismagius. So I actually think my opponent has a pretty decent team. Yeah, the Miniroar snag first round obviously isn't the best, but other than that, I do think they kind of got pretty much the only thing I see really flawed in this draft is speed. The team's extremely slow, and my opponent does not. Do they? I don't think they do. Other than Mismagius, they don't have a ground resistance. And there is some, what else am I looking at? I don't know. The team, the speed obviously, and then no ground, other than Mismagius, no ground resist. And what are the hazard removal options? I don't see any, honestly. Yeah, and then my opponent has, yeah, wow, yeah. So no ground immunity other than Mismagius. No, very lackluster speed stat, and probably most importantly, no hazard removal. So that gave me a pretty decent idea of what exactly I wanted to bring in this game. I definitely wanted to bring hazards. I'm not going to go crazy with it because even though my opponent doesn't really have hazard removal, their team isn't hazard weak. So I knew hazards would be nice, but they wouldn't be crazy. But I knew I'd want to bring hazards on one of my Pokemon. So want to bring hazards. Definitely want to bring something that's very powerful, that can very powerful Pokemon that has a strong ground type move, or just try to be have a really strong ground type move, considering my opponent doesn't really have switch-ins for that. And last but not least, I want to bring some fast Pokemon, considering how slow my opponent's team was. So that's pretty much my idea in this. Opponent's team is still really scary because of threats like Mamoswine, like Xurkitree, like Heatran. They have solid Pokemon. Just the synergy is not fully there in my opinion, but it's not a terrible team. So I definitely didn't want to underestimate or anything my opponent. So pretty much, let's go over the teams that I thought my opponent would bring. So what I was thinking first and foremost was that Mamoswine would be brought. And the reason I was thinking that was because I've stated this before, and I'll state it again. My team's pretty weak to ice types. I have It's definitely improved now that I got rid of, what is that guy, Halucha. Now that I've gotten rid of Halucha, and now that I have Mind Shell, it's definitely helped my really weak ice team, but at the same time it's still not the best against ice types. So I knew my opponent, especially with Landorus being like it's like the captain of the team, so I knew my opponent would want to bring this Mamoswine, and I just knew it was going to be a huge threat that we'd have to prepare for. Mamoswine's one of those huge threats that there's a lot of different items that you can put on it. You can ban this Pokemon, you can Life Orb this Pokemon, you can Scarf this Pokemon, you can sash it and use it more of as a lead. So there's a lot of different items my opponent can run on this Pokemon. I thought Life Orb made a lot of sense just to not lock my opponent into anything with Choice Band, as I definitely had the necessary Pokemon to capitalize off of a Choice Band set, and then also not lock themselves into anything with Choice Scarf either. So I thought Life Orb made the most sense, as I knew my opponent would kind of want to switch up their moves. So I was thinking my opponent would bring a Life Orb set with Earthquake, Icicle Crash, Ice Shard, and Stealth Rocks. There was a chance that my opponent brought something like Freeze Dry over Stealth Rocks just so they had something to hit the Tapu Fini with, as that was like one of my most threatening Pokemon against this Mamoswine. But I thought they'd still go Stealth Rocks, just because rocks are also pretty good against my team. And even though they also have a Heatran, which can also be a rocker, I just kind of felt that coming. And yeah, Ice Shard for priority, and Icicle Crash and Earthquake for powerful stabs. And then just like pretty standard. This is just a standard spread, not much of a reason to go over this, into the spreads. Just some standard spreads I threw on here just to give you guys a general idea of something that I thought might put in my run. But yeah, just full investment in speed to outspeed some of my slower threats, and then a lot of investment in attack to hit hard still. And oh, there shouldn't be 16 in special attack unless they're freeze dry. So disregard this on this set, but this is if they were freeze dry, 16 in us, and special attack. So if the freeze dries hit a little bit hard, that gives my opponent a little bit of what they needed on my Fini to do the necessary damage that they would need to do at freeze dry to make it worth their time. So that's what I was thinking with Mamoswine, just a very threatening Pokemon. Next, I knew Xurkitree would definitely be brought. This is my opponent's Zemon, pretty much like their captain, and I knew it would be brought. I think I have a very I don't think I have like an absolute solid Xurkitree matchup, because I'm not the biggest fan of. I think I have a much better physical wall in like Weezing than I do special walls. Like Reuniclus can tank out some hits, but I feel like I'm kind of boxing my Reuniclus kind of this season in the fact that I don't have the best special walls. So I kind of have to run it really bulky in special defense a lot of weeks, so that I can deal with all these powerful special attackers, especially some of these powerful ones that we had introduced in Generation 7. And then Komala, like, I really wanted to run in more Wish Protect, but if I'm going to run it as a special wall, it kind of needs an Assault Vest, and even then, obviously, it doesn't get reliable recovery with Wish Protect if I run it that way. So I'm not the biggest fan of my special wall, and that's probably the one blatant flaw in my draft. There's definitely others, but that's the one real blatant one now that I was able to patch up my ice weakness a decent bit better. So I don't think I have an amazing Xurkitree matchup because of the fact it can run Hidden Power Ice and kind of predict my Landorus switch in, but I don't think it's bad. And because of the fact that I thought my opponent would try to bring this Psychium Z Hypnosis set, which is pretty notorious on Xurkitree, but I knew I had Komala, who has Comatose, which pretty much means it's already asleep, so it can be put to sleep. And I also have Tapu Fini, who sets up its terrain, which also disallows status on my team. So the fact that I can disallow status, which kind of stops this Xurkitree going for Televo and stuff, I actually really did contemplate that my opponent would predict that I would bring things like Komala and I'd bring Tapu Fini, so they'd maybe bring a Choice Scarf Xurkitree set, which is kind of scary. But I still liked my idea that I brought forth for this Xurkitree. But yeah, I still thought there was a high chance that my opponent would still try to use this set. Especially if they went into Xurkitree really early in the game, and I'm not, and I haven't went into my Tapu Fini, then obviously we won't have the Misty Terrain, and I can be Z Hypnosis on anything that isn't Komala, or my opponent can just get powerful Thunderbolts and stuff off. Yeah, I still thought my opponent would likely bring that that Hypnosis set, just because it definitely, like, if Tapu Finney's Misty Terrain isn't up, my opponent can still really capitalize on that. Thought they'd bring Tailglow just to kind of like try to do a lot of damage to whatever special wall I tried to bring in on this, and then kind of like just take it out with powerful damage. I did think Scarf made more sense, but I don't know. My opponent really hasn't wowed me with any of the sets that they've brought in their previous games, so I wasn't no knock against my opponent. I just wasn't thinking too much that they'd try to bring something that heat, or just something that worked that much better, as this the Hypnosis, just, it's kind of like just more of a go-to, so I thought they'd just go with the go-to, and then just a standard set to use this as well as possible, max in speed and max in special attack. Pretty simple. And is there anything I didn't go over? No, nothing else to go over with Circuitry. Then we get into Heatran. Heatran is, I thought my opponent would definitely bring Heatran because of the fact that they can run a speedy Heatran set with Taunt, so that they can taunt my my Tapu Fini if they have the balls to do that, and taunt my Reuniclus and stop both of those from setting up Calm Minds. Mainly Reuniclus, stop Reuniclus from being able to set up Calm Minds on this Heatran. And I thought my opponent would run something like Toxic, so that he can start to wear down my Reuniclus, and maybe wear down my Fini if Misty Terrain was enough, just stuff like that. So, and then Lava Plume, obviously, for Scissor and just quality stab, and maybe even pick up some burns. And I thought just maybe Stealth Rocks as a second Stealth Rocker, just to make sure my opponent got those rocks up against my team. So that's what I was thinking with Heatran, just full investment in HP to still be bulky, but full investment in speed to make sure my opponent outsped my walls, so that they can definitely taunt those walls. Next, I was thinking Mega Altaria would definitely be brought, as it didn't have the best matchup against my team. To be completely honest, it didn't have the best matchup against my team, but I did think that a Dragon Dance set wasn't terrible. If my opponent could get to a speed really faster than my Sneasel, then all I could do is Ice Shard this, and then well, I have nice priority options for this, because I do have the Bullet Punch and I do have the Ice Shard, but my opponent still they could have ran a Dragon Dance set pretty effectively, and really made some noise, honestly, with this Altaria, in my opinion. So I was kind of fearing a Dragon Dance Altaria set with like Return, Earthquake, and Roost. That's pretty much what I was thinking, maybe on Altaria. Maybe something over Earthquake, as I don't have like a huge EQ weakness on my team, but just kind of just general something. Maybe Fire Blast is another option my opponent could have ran, other than Earthquake. So that was kind of just what I was thinking with Altaria. I definitely thought it'd be brought, but yeah, that's pretty much what I was thinking. Not much else to go into, just full investment in speed, so that when my opponent goes for those Dragon Dances, they actually reach a pretty decent speed stat, so they can try to outspeed some of my main threats that threaten this Pokemon, and then full investment in attack to hit as hard as possible. And then next, I actually thought a Selgor also had a pretty good matchup, and the fact that my opponent really didn't have the best ways of, other than like Miss Magius, I guess, didn't really have the best way of damaging my Reuniclus. So I thought my opponent, especially if I had set a Calm Mind up already, then Xurkitry's Thunderbolts wouldn't be doing too much, and Xurkitry really doesn't have the best defense, so I'd be able to hit it back really hard after it tried to hit me. So I thought Selgor made a little bit of sense with a Life Orb, so my opponent can go for those Stab Bug Buzzes with the 100 special attack stat, not bad at all, and do pretty decent damage. Hidden Power Ice for my Landorus, as it definitely outspeeds because it's so fast. Selgor just kind of really patches up my opponent's lackluster speed stat, so I thought they definitely want to bring it so that they could deal with some of our faster threats. As then Focus Blast for the Sneasel, if my opponent had the balls to go for that. And then Giga Drain for my Tapu Fini. So that was what I was thinking with a Selgor, and just standard on the EV spread, just to maximize speed and the special attack. And then last but not least, I thought Slowking would be brought, maybe with Toxic somewhere for my Reuniclus once again. But definitely just like Scald for stab, Calm Minds to maybe start to Calm Mind up on my team if my opponent saw that I didn't have like Sneasel still, and I couldn't really do much to this. Or if I didn't have knockoff Landorus or something still left in the game, then they can maybe Calm Mind up and try to just win this game with Calm Mind, Slack Off, and Scald and Psyshock. So that's pretty much what I was thinking with this, and just full investment in bulk, in the defensive end of bulk with 252 in HP as well, just to take any physical hits really well, as I thought setting up the Calm Minds would mean that my opponent's special defense would be pretty patched up, and he wouldn't have to be too worried about that. So this is pretty much what I was thinking for my opponent's team. Regenerator, Standard, Slowking, offensive is Selgor, Mega Altaria, offensive DD, Mega Altaria, Second Rocker, but Taunt and Toxic, Lava Plume, Heatran, Tail Glow, Z Hypnosis, Circuitry, and just a powerful standard Life Orb, Mamoswine. Kind of a general idea of what I was thinking, so I knew I'd have to make sure to plan well for these threats, as these are a lot of threatening quality Pokemon. So let's hop right into my team. And alright, here we are. So, getting right into my team, I knew first and foremost I wanted Reuniclus on this team because Circuitry was actually one of the Pokemon that was giving me the most trouble while I was team building for my opponent's team. I knew if I like set up some Calm Minds, well, this investment allows me to be, it's a role that's very much in my favor for me to be 2-hit KO'd by Thunderbolt, and I knew that would allow me to maybe set up some Calm Minds and stuff like that in front of Circuitry, but I knew it could go for Tail Glow, so that was pretty scary. But I knew I wanted Reuniclus in this game, especially because of the Amoonguss that my opponent also has in the team. Slowking can't really damage us, and I can Calm Mind up on that. I can Calm Mind up on Heatran if it's not running Taunt. So I thought Reuniclus was definitely a Pokemon I wanted in this game, and that's pretty much why Reuniclus was the first and foremost Pokemon I put on this team. And yeah, just the EV spread does a lot of different things, but it mainly allows me to still be pretty powerful in attack. As I could have went more, I could have went like a Calm Nature, or yeah, I could have went a Calm Nature and put more into my special defense. But considering that Circuitry either had to be Choice Scarf, which meant it couldn't go for the Tail Glow, which made it less scary, or it had to be Psychium Z Hypnosis, or would be Psychium Z Hypnosis, and it wouldn't and it would be able to go for Tail Glow, but then it'd be so slow that I can easily revenge kill it. So I was worried about Circuitry, but I knew it'd have to be played really well to be like a huge threat to my team. So I didn't see the need to go Calm on this Reuniclus, so I just decided to put more investment in special attacks so I can maybe do a little bit more sweeping at a little quicker pace, especially if I got a Calm Mind up without taking any damage. So that's pretty much what I was thinking. I did contemplate running Focus Blast maybe for the Heatran and stuff like that, but I saw that as a little well, pretty unnecessary, considering that Shadow Ball is definitely gets neutral coverage on the Heatran, as well as gets that super effective coverage for Slowking. So I thought that'd be worth it. I did contemplate Regenerator a lot, but then I just saw that the only way my opponent really beats this Reuniclus is if they're somehow able to set up a Tail Glow in front of it, or if they're able to Toxic it. So I was like, I'll go Magic Card and make sure that Toxic is not something that really bothers me. So that is pretty much Reuniclus, and I was proud of that set. Moving on though, as I said when we were just recently, while recapping our the team that I thought my opponent might bring, my opponent does not really have the best answer for powerful ground type attacks. So I decided this week we would just ban our Landorus. I did think about a maybe Supersonic Sky Strike Landorus for the Amoonguss a little bit, but at the same time I knew there was a decent chance that my opponent might not bring Amoonguss because it really does like to go for Spore. I just have too many options for Spore. I could be running Overcoat Reuniclus, which is an every time switching into Amoonguss. I could be running, I could just go into my Tapu Fini's Misty Terrain can be up to disallow any sleep powder shenanigans. I can go into Komala and they can be put to sleep, and then I have some threatening Pokemon on my team for that Amoonguss in Reuniclus and Sneasel. So I thought there was a decent chance that my opponent might not try to bring that Amoonguss. So I was like, it seems too just specific for one Pokemon that even has a decent chance of not being brought. So I thought, let's not go a Z move. We really don't need it, and another item can just be more effective. So I decided to choice ban this Landorus just so I can maybe even start to sweep my opponent's team close to the end, especially if there's no a Selgor left. I can just start to just fire off EQ after EQ. I knew I could pretty much get in on Heatran maybe at some point in the game, fire off those EQs, and really blow my opponent back with how much damage it ends up doing. And I knew that my opponent does have the one resistance for ground type attacks in Mismagius, but I knew that'd be a mind game for them trying to decide to bring this in on Landorus or not, considering that I also do have that knockoff coverage, and choice band knockoff will certainly OHKO a Mismagius. So that's what I was looking at. Earthquake knockoff, pretty much all I really needed, but U-turn for Switch Initiative and Stealth Rocks, just to, like I said, my opponent's team doesn't have hazard removal, so hazards aren't bad. 196 just allowed me to outspeed what I could outspeed. I wanted to hit as hard as possible in attack, so 252 in attack with that Adamant Nature, and then just 52 EVs were invested in special defense, just leftover EVs just thrown around. So that's Landorus. Next we move on to Scissor, as Scissor had the matchup that I wanted against the Altaria, and I just saw its bullet punches being pretty good in this matchup. The only thing bullet punch didn't seem too good against was that Circuitry, but I knew we can deal with that. So Scissor was pretty much his bullet punch, U-turn, Roost, and Swords Dance. I liked Swords Dance just in case Circuitry was gone. Then Swords Dance became really nice because then I could do a lot of damage to like the entirety of my opponent's team. Other than pretty much Heatran, but I can U-turn out on Heatran, or I'd actually probably have to switch out. But I thought Heatran coming in gave me a lot of switch-ins, as Reuniclus didn't mind switching in on Heatran unless my opponent was going to make a very spicy HP Ice prediction, and even run HP Ice with their Heatran. Landorus can come in each time. Flash Cannon is isn't the best for Landorus, but it can still pretty much come in on that, and Tapu Fini can definitely come in on Heatran every single time. So I wasn't too worried about Heatran, and yeah, I thought Scissor had a pretty decent matchup, so I decided to bring Scissor. I went with a pretty bulky Scissor because I wanted to be able to set up that Swords Dance and maybe use this as like a backup sweeper if necessary. So that's pretty much what I was thinking with Scissor. 148 allows me to take like Thunderbolts and other powerful special attacks that my opponent had a little bit better. And yeah, the EVs do a lot of different things, but it's mainly just banking on Scissor's bulk a lot. Then we get into Tapu Fini, and pretty standard Tapu Fini. This is pretty much like the OU bulky defensive bulky Tapu Fini. I just went a little bit further in bulk so that I can make sure that Life Orb, Mamoswine's Earthquakes don't like decimate our Tapu Fini. As I had some options for Mamoswine in like Bullet Punch from Scissor, and Low Kick from Sneasel, and just, yeah, I had options, and then obviously this Tapu Fini, but I needed a dedicated 1v1er at full health for the Mamoswine, and that's pretty much what I thought I had in Tapu Fini, as the 204 with the Bold Nature and 252 in HP allowed me to be 3-hit KO'd by Earthquake, which is after Leftovers recovery, which is extremely nice because that made me much more comfortable taking on the Mamoswine. So I just decided to go with Surf. When you have Misty Terrain, didn't really see a need for Scald, excuse me, as it's just 10 less power, and I really wouldn't be benefiting much from Burns, as I thought Misty Terrain would be up most of the time that I was in with Tapu Fini. My opponent doesn't have an opposing terrain, as I decided to run Electric Terrain Circuitry, which is an option, but I didn't think they would. So yeah, Surf, Moonblast for a stab option, and then Shadow Ball just for coverage for the Mismagius and the Slowking as well, is just a solid option for the team. And with Calm Mind, because I thought there was a few Pokemon I could Calm Mind up on, like Slowking, and we would win that Calm Mind war with Slowking. That's what Shadow Ball is mainly for, just to win the Calm Mind war with Slowking in case we got into one, because the fact that we'd have a super effective move on Slowking and it would not have one on us, so we would win that war. So yeah, that's pretty much what I was thinking, just through 44 in special defense, just to have a little bit of bulk in special defense as well. Then we get into Komala, and we are running a Solvest Komala because this was my dedicated switch into Circuitry. It's Thunderbolts do a lot of damage to anything that is in Komala, so or Reuniclus does more to Reuniclus, but mainly Komala. So I definitely wanted like a dedicated switching into Circuitry, and that's what Komala provided us. And I also wanted Rapid Spin just in case my opponent made sure to get those hazards up against us. So Komala provides the Rapid Spin, it provides us that dedicated switch-in, and has access to Earthquake, which gets us a pretty powerful, super effective hit on Circuitry. I didn't really see any coverage moves or anything I really needed for that third slot, so I decided to just run Sucker Punch to maybe pick up a KO my opponent thought I wouldn't otherwise be able to, and then just U-turn for that slow U-turn so we can maybe get into some faster threats. So not bad at all, and it's just full investment in special defense. I need to take those Thunderbolts as well as possible. 252 in HP for max bulk, and then 4 in attack just to do a little bit more damage. And then last but definitely not least, Sneasel had an absolutely amazing matchup against my opponent's team. Super effective stab with the Icicle Crash on Altaria, on a Moongus. Then it has the knockoff for the Slowking, for the Mismagius, And it even gets the low kick for the Mamoswine and for Heatran, which does a lot of damage with a Life Orb if those are decently weakened. And then Ice Shard obviously for priority to maybe stop any type of sweeping my opponent thought that they might end up doing, especially with Mega Altaria setting up DDs. So I really liked Sneasel in this one. 198 in speed allows me to outspeed my opponent's entire team, barring Scarfson, barring that Selgor. And then 252 on attack, and I just pretty much dumped most of the rest of the EVs in defense because I just had them. I didn't really see any need for them to be in special defense. I thought most of the special attackers, I'd be able to get them up and out of there really quickly. I didn't really see myself living any of those special hits if they were able to get fired off. So that's pretty much what I was thinking. Life Orbed, Sneasel, Solvest Komala, Leftovers Finny, bulky Mega Scissor, Choice Bandit, Landorus, and then another Leftovers Reuniclus. I felt pretty good about the team. I didn't feel that hot about my lead options though going into this one, as my opponent had a few options they can lead with, like Heatran, like Mamoswine. I did feel like Mamoswine would likely be the lead though, because of the fact that Landorus seems like a likely lead from my end, and that means Heatran isn't the best lead. And Mamoswine would threaten out my Landorus right away. So I thought I felt pretty solid on my opponent leading with Mamoswine. So I decided to lead with something to accommodate that. So we'll hop right into that game. I'll see you guys in the game. And we are at the game. And as you can see, my opponent decided to not bring a Selgor. They also decided to not bring Mega Altaria. So some pretty interesting things. They did bring the Miss Magius, which means that we won't just be able to entirely spam EQ, but it's still mind games for my opponent trying to go into that Miss Magius, so we do have knockoff. And yeah, I thought it was really interesting that my opponent decided to bring Lipard, honestly, because of the fact that Lipard I don't know, usually tries to go for like T-Waves and stuff like that, considering it does have that Prankster ability. And I didn't really understand how that was really going to work against my team when I have Tapu Fini, and it pretty much disallows a lot of status from coming our way. So I didn't really, I wasn't the biggest, I didn't really understand my opponent bringing Lipard. I really didn't understand, so I kind of was like, wow, is this going to be like a Choice Bandit Lipard? Is this just something to kind of catch me off guard? Is I think Lipard gets access like Bullet Seed and stuff like that, so I didn't know what Lipard would be, so I knew I definitely want to scout Lipard. Looking at my opponent's team, I'm looking at their lead options, and I'm like, my opponent's definitely going to think I'm leading Landorus or something that has a decent matchup against Heatran, so they're going to lead that Mamoswine, so I'm just going to lead Finny and try to call that prediction that my opponent would lead Mamoswine, because it just made sense to me. So we'll just hop right into this one. As you guys can definitely see, my opponent did decide to lead that Mamoswine. So what I'm thinking here is I can set up a Calm Mind on this, as there's a lot of, obviously this Mamoswine can be a lot of different sets. So I kind of want to figure out what it is at the same time, but I also kind of want to just go for a Calm Mind and maybe start to really get at a nice amount of start to really dish out some damage really early on. But obviously the Xurkitree is still there and everything, so that's pretty much stopping me from wanting to go for a Calm Mind, because it can easily just come in and really start to hit our Tapu Fini really hard. Surf is actually, if it's a Mamoswine that has no bulk and special defense or HP, Surf has an 18.8% chance to OHKO Mamoswine. So I decided there's no reason to overpredict or do anything crazy. I kind of like, Surf is going to hit everything hard. I guess I could have maybe went for a Shadow Ball, maybe for the Slow King switch in, but at the same time, if I get in a Calm Mind war with Slow King, I win. So yeah, my opponent didn't really have the best option, so I decided let's go for that Surf and see if we get that OHKO. So my opponent does just go for the Stealth Rocks, and they do outspeed us as well. We aren't that fast though, so I still didn't know what type of Mamoswine this was. There though, you saw that my opponent went for another Stealth Rocks. I'm not sure what they were doing honestly there. I really can't tell you. That obviously meant that they were Scarf. I guess my opponent didn't want to switch into anything and they just sacked their Mamoswine. I highly disagree with that play, but I guess at the same time, at that low amount of health, I would just really be, that's not gonna, other than like Landorus, Mamoswine wasn't really gonna OHKO anything. And I guess my opponent, when my opponent saw that I have all these priority options in Ice Shard and Bullet Punch, so I guess my opponent just decided that they didn't really want to keep this Mamoswine around. I don't completely understand it, but that is exactly what's happened. We take down the Mamoswine. My opponent goes right into Circuitry as expected. This thing can do huge damage to our Tapu Fini. We go right into our dedicated switch in Komala, and we're ready to take whatever my opponent wants to go for. I didn't really have the calc still forward with rocks damage as well, so that's a little unfortunate. Opponent did go for that Z Hypnosis. Instead it missed. I thought it would just say that the attack couldn't hit us because I am comatose, which means I am already asleep, so Z Hypnosis wasn't going to hit us either way. My opponent does get that speed boost that Z Hypnosis does grant you though, so not bad. Here I know that we can live any hit my opponent wants to go for, and we can just EQ. So that's exactly what I do. My opponent does decide to set up a Tail Glow, which is pretty scary to me. I thought at this point I didn't do the calc, but I thought at this point that a Tail Glow boosted Thunderbolt would take out our Komala. I knew I could just revenge kill this thing really easily though, so I wasn't too worried. But I thought it would kill us, so I went for the Sucker Punch, just trying to get off damage before I went down. And we do take the Thunderbolt, and we do actually live on 4%, depending on my opponent's set. That didn't really have a chance of taking us out. I don't even think I think they actually were modest to do that much damage. So yeah, they didn't have a chance to really take us out. So that's not bad at all. The Sucker Punch actually did. Let's go. Sucker Punch actually did 22.1%, so that means that another Sucker Punch will definitely take out this Circuitry, and I thought my opponent would definitely see that, so I decided actually to just Rapid Spin here. My opponent goes for another Tail Glow, I guess just to go for something to stop me from going for another Sucker Punch, but it's like I'll sit here and spam Sucker Punch all day if you want to play that game. So we not only get rid of our rocks, we then knock out the Circuitry with a Sucker Punch afterwards. My opponent does go right into that light part though, which is pretty interesting. I didn't know what this thing was going to do though. My Komala has done everything it's going to do, so I just sack Komala. Then my opponent goes for a Thunder Wave on my Fini in Misty Terrain, and this is where things just really start to go downhill. And like I said, my opponent really didn't. They seemed like our game wasn't the highest on our priority list. They were kind of just so busy with work in school that it seemed like just this game this week wasn't the highest on their priority list. And I do think from here on out it really shows. I thought it showed with the plays with that Executory and with the Mamoswine already, but from here on out it really shows. And especially that Thunder Wave in Misty Terrain, obviously no status in Misty Terrain, so just even bringing Light Part in the first place kind of shows that my opponent really wasn't, like, they didn't put their best effort in this team building, which is unfortunate because I really like to get my opponent's best effort at each week, week in and week out, but sometimes that just doesn't happen. People are busy, people have lives, I understand, and that's what happens. So we get the Moonblast off. It does 70%. I don't want to make any over predictions. I just go for another Moonblast. My opponent does go into Miss Magus, which is fine. I have the coverage for this Miss Magus. I'm just going to go for a Shadow Ball. My opponent does set up a nasty plot, which is pretty scary as we don't take out the Miss Magus. Has a monster special defense stat. So what I'm thinking here is alright, so opponent went for the nasty plot. That's +2 in special attack. That's pretty scary. Fortunately for us though, with our 44 in special defense, with the 252 in HP, Thunderbolt can only do, if this is a timid Miss Magus, it can only do without Life Orb, with like a Cobra Berry, because I thought my opponent, considering how good of a matchup Sneasel had against my opponent's team, I thought they would maybe run like Cobra Berry on Miss Magus so they don't get pursuit trapped. So that they're just not taken out so easily. So so for Cobra Berry or any item other than a attack boosting, a damage boosting item, my opponent would Timid would do less than 70%, and Modest would also do less than 70%. And with the Life Orb though, my opponent actually had an 87.5% chance to take us out. My opponent has already attacked into us. Right there you see my opponent is not going to be Life Orbed, and we are going to be able to live that, and we do take out the Miss Magus, so that is great. Opponent goes back into that Light Part. Here I know a Fake Out's coming out, so I go into Scissor just to tank out that Fake Out. And then here the Misty Terrain actually ends, so I thought my opponent would definitely go for another T-Wave here, as I thought that was pretty much the purpose of this Light Part. With Light Part being faster than Sneasel, I thought it'd definitely be faster than Bullet Punch, so I decided to just go back into Finny, as my opponent just reveals Foul Play. Pretty interesting. I guess that was their only like real attacking moves. So that means that this Pokemon's pretty much walled by Tapu Fini. So I'm able to take that out with a Moonblast. Now my opponent only has the 2 Pokemon left in Heatran and Slowking. So I'm like, it's time to just go into Reuniclus and try to sweep these 2 out. As long as my opponent doesn't get Flash Cannon special defense drops, we should be in a solid position. So they do go for that Flash Cannon at first. They don't get the drop, and they don't get like a Flamethrower burn, which wouldn't have mattered as I am Magic Guard as you guys saw. I start to set up those Calm Minds, no reason not to. My opponent hasn't revealed Taunt. It was like, if you have Taunt, you're going to be able to stop this. If you don't have Taunt, I am going to win the game. And my opponent doesn't have Taunt, so this will be the game. I cannot talk today. But yeah, this will be game. I guess there's no need to speed it up. It actually ends up going pretty fast. So yeah, I'm just setting up Calm Minds, making sure that I just get out the max amount of Calm Minds so that these 2 special attackers in no way can win my opponent the game against this Reuniclus. Just recover back up to get back at a nice little amount of health. Then I go for 1 more Calm Mind, recover up 1 last time, and then I just sweep these last 2 Pokemon. So as you guys can see, my opponent just they were not prepared really for this week, and it's unfortunate, but we take those wins, so we will be improving to 4-1 after week 5, and we're doing nice. We're still doing pretty well, which is solid. This is a huge win for us. I guess not a huge win. It was a must win though, as I really want to start to separate from the rest of the pack of the 3-1s in the league. So definitely just a win that I really wanted, and we were able to get that, which is nice. And yeah, so I don't know who we play next week. I could look at my phone, but it's not necessary. Definitely hope you guys enjoyed this battle though. I'll see you guys in the next MPL Division 2 action. For now though, I'm gonna get the heck out of here. Peace out, everyone.